3, 2, 1. And hello everyone. Hello world. Hello YouTube. Hello Instagram. Sasha is here. Today in another episode, everything you wanted to know about dogs, you just didn't have whom to ask, kind of. So today we're going to start again a very important part of our journey, introducing again a Pure Love and Harmony wellness formula and what does real holistic approach to a dog care actually means. Holistic doesn't necessarily mean the way of only one section in your life. Holistic means all-inclusive, all-encompassing. And when it comes to a dog care, it's very important to know what three pillars are the foundation on the proper and well-aware holistic pet care, especially dog care. I'm sorry, just that's my expertise. I don't know much about cats and other animals, but when it comes to a dog, that's something that my lifelong journey is dedicated to. So the very important part of understanding of the dog's needs, real needs of the dogs, without us projecting them the human traits, where that's relationship we have with our dogs, being so emotionally entangled with them. Oftentimes we get them in our life when we go through the hardships and times that we cannot deal with ourselves and the world around us, then bring us to the possibility to allow ourselves with the healing we got through the dogs instead of with the dog. And then in that little interaction, what happens is that we just lost the compass. And once we lost the compass, the idea would become that actually what brings us to this relationship with our dog is actually becomes a projection. And then we treat our dogs based on some schools, laws, and approaches that treat the dog like domestic animal, like an animal, like a sheep, like anything else that's kind of like bringing us together in a relationship where you do not understand that the dog is a creature of their own habits. They have their own way of seeing the world and their own needs. And the dogs are somehow lost in this space. Is the dog domestic animal like a cat, sheep, and horses? Or the dog is some wild animal that got domesticated itself and adapted to the human life and reaching closer to humans in order to benefit from them, rather than the willingness of the humans to go out there in the nature and find the animals that can benefit humans. And there is a big misconception when we analyze the dog, what actually species appropriate diet is. That's very important, but it's not a holistic. It's missing a very important parts of the holistic unisigned, like a how can I say, the solution of the holistic approach. And what is missing? So the foundation of the human-dog relationship is actually understanding, compassion through the communication. So if no matter how hard, and that's the most tragically abused and misunderstood part of the human-dog interaction, because we don't have one simple question answered, who is the dog? That's the question need to be asked. And that's a question need to be answered. And that's a question I was dedicating my life to, answering simply as that. Who is a dog? Who is a dog? Is the dog domesticated animal? Is the dog domestic animal? Or the dog is domesticated itself in order to approach humans? If you answer these questions right and correctly, then you will kind of like start engaging in a real compassionate understanding of the needs of the dog. When the Maslow was creating that very famous Maslow's pyramid of human needs, he started that when the human has, when the people have all the fundamental physiological needs fulfilled, then belonging is the next big step of asking, feeling that need, gap of the need, like. And then but as more he was studying that hierarchy of needs, the most question became like, are the humans, and that also becomes very important to every other social animal, non-human animals as well, if we can, non-human mammals as well, but also very importantly, animals that are connected through the group experience, where the survival comes from the group experiencing in the group. So, and then he said, like, I'm not quite sure, is the physiological need is important to become first met? Because if the human or the animal doesn't feel a sense of belonging, then the physical needs tend to be kind of like suppressed up to a moment of self-destruction. And that because we do not feel belonging to a family or the group, or feel excluded for no matter what reason, the self-destruction is taking a place. That's why we abuse all kind of things that we should actually just consume. And then instead of consuming it in order to live, we consume in order to belong. And that is how everything becomes abused rather than consumed. So like alcohol is good when consumed, but very, very terribly dangerous when abused. Also, food can be, at the same time, can be like a healing power, but also source of all kind of, all kind of illnesses as well. So if we are fulfilling our physiological needs through the sense of not belonging, we're going to abuse the physiological needs in order to self-destruction. That's where that leads to a self-destruction. So then that become like a very deliberately very important question to ask. Is the hierarchy of needs understanding sense of belonging that leads to a proper consumption of the physiological needs, and then to all the rest of the all the rest of needs that actually builds us into that hierarchy. Why this is very important when analyzing the dogs? Because from the same token, we can feel them gold. We can feel them gold. And why this is very connected, why this is so intermingled, if I can say so, it's because if we do not feel a sense of belonging, that's also very deeply explained through one very great therapeutic method that I'm actually very big fan of, and I also practice that in my everyday life, in everything I do and everything all the relationship I have, I try to, bring that knowledge into, and that's order of love, orders of love, orders of harmony, and family constellation therapy. A lot of things, that is where my big breakthrough, when everything we do in the pure love and harmony starts with this integral belonging component of why the humans and dogs, and especially why me and my dog interact in such a strange, emotional, very emotional, entangled, and great relationship that I'm kind of not able to develop with any other human being. So with that said, understanding, not projecting the needs would be a first step in order to approach the holistic way of interacting with the canines. When you say holistic, you mean all-encompassing. And why, for example, traditional medicine and everything that, old ancient wisdom brings to a table, that actually little westernized mind in this consumptionism and everything that we are kind of like in this era of just, mass media and trade media is being used in order to, manufacture this production of the commercials that are just keeping this commercial, like consumerism up and running. So whenever we have little money left, we need to, just tend to spend somehow for something because there is another need. There is another thing I need because no matter what reason, I find something I need. But that's the same thing becomes when it comes to dogs. There is so much fluff in that industry that you can either you really need to have a really focused mind in order to distinguish what is to use and what is making us be abusive on animals because we are projecting human traits and we think that by imprinting these thoughts to them and this need to them, we're gonna make them feel better, and then in return they're gonna give us that sense of compassion that we actually crave so much. That's why we are so entangled with our dogs. So every single holistic old ancient wisdom starts with healing the source of the being. And that's in every single one of us, source of self-belonging, self-centric, source of the self that actually is soul of ours, divinity of ours. When we approach divine place of ours, we should we tend to bring us back into place where everything was right. When entire our organism and every cell was healthy and happy and we were thriving and everything was produced from that sense of belonging to self. And then as we matured, as we opened ourselves to the world around us, we become actually very much connected to the world on a level of self-exclusion from the self. And that's why the dogs are so much healing to our soul, because we feel that through the dogs we can approach that piece of self that got detached from ourself. But that's actually what we do through that. We are just trying to do that, thinking that the dog is a solution, where that becomes like emotional and even spiritual abuse of the dog's needs, of the real dog needs. And then from that point, what we do actually to our dogs, out from the pure love, that becomes destructive and also becomes self-destructive to ourselves. It's that trend where actually the dog try to mirror the pieces of our soul that are left through our life as we grew up the best possible way. We knew how to how to become aware and just survive through the experiences we was led through in our life. So with that said, understanding how to distinguish real stuff from fluff, you really need to get back to the possibility of understanding, is this what I'm using helping my dog achieve better life through these three pillars: communication, nutrition, coat care. Communication, nutrition, coat care. In every single death, I can use and abuse tools that I have at my disposal in order to get it right. So we have as I already said, it's not that we cannot drink alcohol. It's just that if we abuse alcohol, it's going to bring self-destruction. So it becomes like I am the one chooses to move this path. So I'm using my essential needs in order to fulfill my needs of belonging. And I can do that same thing to my dog, because the food can become a source of healing, but also food can become a poison itself to a dog. And all the dog is taking from me is whatever I offer to a dog. And then the dog relates on my knowledge and my groundness, possibility of me to be grounded, to make a right decision at the right time, as a responsible leader or responsible pet parent. And that's what the dogs expect from us. So if you said, I wanna have just a simple how, for example, just a simple explanation to this. For example, you say like I have this harness, or I have this collar to my dog. I can use it as a status symbol to prove my, I belonging to a brand, to something else, because I want to be seen. That my dog wears jewelry, that my dog wears expensive collars or the expensive harnesses that are just designed. But actually, with the same token, I'm destroying my life with my dog, because the way that literally that little harness is designed is killing my dog's shoulder, killing my dog's hips, ruining the biomechanical model of the dog, because I just never heard of those things, and I don't know how to put those things together, and I don't know actually how the harness can ruin the biomechanical model and actually cause in a later time to come my dog to even have experienced the feelings and even the symptoms of the hip dysplasia, if that was never part of his genetic possibilities. Where did this come from? But if we slowly, every single day, with every single walk, ruin a little bit of his back at his shoulder, that ruins the dog's biomechanical model, already ruined by irresponsible breeding, because the dogs are usually, this should everything be considered prior the dogs breed together. So, and when we put together this, when we just choose a harness for our dog, that's a tool that can abuse the power of our choice and create more harm to a dog than just, I cannot use collars because my dog pulls on the leash and it's always strengthening the dog. So what do I actually have? I do have a lack of communication skills to teach my dog to walk by my side, next to my leg, out from their own respect, appreciation, and decision. So what we want to do is bring the dogs to a point of self-understanding of the surrounding in which they live, and then from that point of view, allow them to choose the next step consciously. The dog do. The question here, again, another question to ask that arises from the answer, who is the dog? Is the dog conscious being? Is the dog conscious animal? Is the dog able to feel emotions? Is the dog able to feel sadness? Is the dog able to feel happiness? If answer to any of these questions is yes, then are we treating animals with respect regarding their possible experience of the pain? And now we are facing all the other... You know why this is so dangerous question to ask? And why we cannot literally answer them fully with freedom? Is because, as I said a lot of times, answering the question, who is a dog, leads to possible threats to political and economical life and the structure of the societies that we know as of now. And why is that? Because if we keep looking the dog through the same lens as we are looking at the moment, for example, because as I said, as we are looking the cows and horses and everything else, and someone starts talking about the dogs as a conscious being with a fear, emotions of fear, of love, of understanding, that they are able. What does actually consciousness mean in a broad sense of the definition? Means awareness of my existence within the world around me. So I'm aware of myself and the world around me, and now I can, balance and feel emotions based on world I live in. And if we answer that the dogs are able to feel the emotions, then how do we answer way we treat dogs at the moment? Everything that we do have on our disposals are tools of making dogs behave the way we want. Is that the same way we treated elephants and the lions in the circus? Before all of this movement of the animal activism actually cut that abuse and stopped performing circuses with animal performances in motion. And yes, answer would be yes. If the elephant can feel suffering, and if the lion can feel suffering by being forcefully pushed to do and perform things that the humans enjoyed, then why wouldn't the same theory apply to a dog? And then if applies to a dog, why the same theory cannot apply to cows, horses, and the industry of the meat production and the human food production as we know it of today? When I was writing my book, Orders of Harmony, or book that has a title that I'm probably going to change. As of now, it's still called Interconnected, where I actually talk about like how the humans are connected to the world around us. And then why I'm talking about this, because this is so critical to lay the foundation of everything we do to our dogs. Depend on answering the question, who is a dog? Because answering that question, who is a dog, why is that important? Because the pyramid, or the order or the ladder or the pyramid of need is going to be laid out from. Because why is that important? Because if you know who is the horse, or who is a chicken, or who is a cow, or who is a bird, or who is an elephant, then you know everything. Then you know a social structure of the group and life those animals have. You know the food they consume. You know the way to interact with them. You know their place in the ecosystem. You know everything that comes out from the answer, who is whoever, who is the dog. So now when we answer who is the dog is domesticated wolf. Is it? Or the dog that domesticated itself. Is it? The end of the evolution chain of the domestication of the wolf that started 15,000, 100 times. Is it? The wolf puppy. Is it? Another species. Is it? All of that should be answered prior we do anything. We do communication, we do nutrition, or we do coat care. And all of those, we have a lot of scientists that were like very intrigued with the same question I'm putting up now, but not a lot of them got mainstream presence, and a lot of them were very criticized for the questions, because for the answering these questions, very independently answering the questions, and not emotionally answering the questions, by very curiously and the mindset in which they were kind of evaluating the scientific research went to a position of making things right. And then making things right, laying the foundation of everything. Communication, nutrition, coat care, like 3 pillars that Pure Love and Harmony wellness formula is laying on. But none of these pillars can be approached from the right angle and perspective if there is not clear answer on the question, who is the dog? Because just after that question is answered, all the other answers, how do I communicate with my dog? How do I feed my dog? How do I care for the coat? All of those questions are answered just after I know who is the dog, because if I know who is the cow, then I know how do I communicate with the cow, which which sense of belonging, because maybe it's not the same way how you treat a pack animal, or how you treat a herd animal, or how you treat a flock, or how you treat the fishes in the ocean, because they're all guided by the different sense of belonging. And that's why it's very important to answer. And then why it's important to know who is a fish and who is a cow, because if you want to treat fish with the food for the cow, or if you want to treat a cow with the food for the dog, you probably won't get a great outcome, or there would be consequences in time to come. So when we are talking holistic, usually the holistic would be only one pillar that focuses on health, a holistic health, a holistic solution. But not a lot of holistic approaches these days are coming from the perspective answered by independent scientists that are on the margin of the mainstream understanding of who is a dog. And if you really dive in deeper into understanding why these scientists never got enough space in the mainstream, you will see all of that surrounding with a big industrial complex of farming industrial animals for the human food consumption, is because you cannot treat dog differently than you treat cow. Or vice versa, even better, you cannot treat cow differently than you treat dog. So if you change, and if you have this animal consciousness, scientific papers coming out left and right, of the dogs having a consciousness and feeling emotions and feeling sadness and fear, and how all of that impacts their physiology, and how physiology is changed by the hormonal interaction of the different setting of the hormones interacting in order for animal to face the fear, then you will have the same concept of those answers and questions being asked when analyzing industrial farming of animals. And that was the first reason why I withdrew my veterinarian studies, because I didn't wanted my education to be impacted by this Tyson nonsense. That was for the Tyson, the big industrial complex of the in the early 60s or late 50s, I think, was making a very big, strong, lobbying to the lawmakers and all kind of, health lawmakers and the veterinarian science scripts and programs in the schools and everything, that animals should be just seen as a factory itself, like a factory for the human food production. So you don't see pig that's locked in the cage and cannot move around for entire her life. You don't see pig. You see a little machine on which bones the food for the humans is produced. And we don't care about animal consciousness. It doesn't exist. Sadness doesn't exist. Nothing exists. You just need to care about how fast you can get this pig from the moment you put her in that little crate until the moment you get her out through the slaughterhouse. How much that gonna cost? So how much money end consumer need to pay in order to consume the bacon, so they can go and make other jobs. So that's a line that hurts economy down the road. And unfortunately, dog is not exposed from this perspective of the animal domestic animal analysis, and answering the questions: are dogs conscious, and can they feel everything that everyone that lives with the dogs know the dog feels, cannot be looked separately from any other animal on this planet. Does this brings change in the, it should be just, I think like all of this should bring a big consciousness about like how the world is interacting among themselves and which price we're going to pay down the road if we continue doing things as we do. We obviously see that world is collapsing left and right, like starting with the ocean pollutions problems and the climate change. No matter from which perspective we're gonna give attention to those changes, man-made or natural, whatever. What humankind is doing to itself when it starts to intermingle with this other creatures on the planet, we are paying the price of self-destruction. And just question becomes like, it's not a question like, will the world survive without us? Of course, it's gonna survive. It survived without dinosaurs and without Egyptians and Incas and Mayas, and all the civilization were coming and going, and usually reaching the point of self-destruction. I don't see us reaching anything differently. Probably, maybe just will be. It wouldn't be end of the world if we'd be end of the mankind, and the world will keep thriving. Some new species gonna start organizing themselves in a different way. The plastic gonna need like 3 million years to dissolve, but it's gonna occasionally dissolve in killing and polluting the rest of the planet, but the planet gonna thrive in hundreds of millions of years that's gonna come. And will we survive as a mankind to see that changes come true? That's not the point. And the nature on its own, it's not even interested too much in answering that question. But when it comes to a human-dog interaction, the most important thing that when we want to please someone, what we need to know is the real needs. And then don't fluff it around. Just be precise, because caring for the dog is very simple. The dog is a very simple animal, doesn't need a lot, doesn't need they just need a structure. They just need they just need a beautiful, happy family. They don't need a right owner. They don't need a good owner. They need a happy owner. It's exactly the same like for any single child. They don't need a good mother. We don't need to be good parents. We need to be happy parents. And only happy parents are the good ones. But not necessarily the best and the good parents are the happiest one. And that's where when the kids are stepping in place, trying to sacrifice themselves for the happiness of their parents. And the dogs are doing the same, because that's where all of this, what we are doing, and I'm trying to communicate through this messaging and this content about like everything you wanted to know about the dogs, and answering these questions that not a lot of people dare to ask, are actually the most important thing that I feel doing as a responsibility, because it comes from 30 years of a very exciting, a very successful career of me taking care of one of the world best show dogs, some of them costing like a couple of $1 million a year in their careers. And when you have such a big responsibility towards such how can I say, sophisticated animal, then you need to know things the other don't know. Not because you want to be clever or you are clever. No, just because you want to be ahead. You want to be competitive. You're going to provide something that other cannot, or they can, but they're maybe lazy to learn. They don't have time or whatever. And then all of this world that I find was keep actually making me being more and more and more intrigued. Like, who is a dog, and what can I do better? And that is how I discovered that. And the more I discover and more I talk about this, more I get criticized. And more I'm loving it, because I would have a beautiful career charging like a couple of $1,000s for my daily fees and all expenses paid through the world, and showing dogs for the trophies and things like that. But the moment I actually ask myself, like, what the heck are you doing? I was able to do much better things than to deal with the consequences of my truthful talk now. But there is not a pleasant joy that comes from doing the right thing than actually the one I'm doing now. So this is something I really enjoy, sharing my path and my passion about importance of bringing these three pillars together. Not necessarily, maybe as I evolve, I'll start maybe less and less talking about how do I do it and share my expertise of that. So I don't become a consultant to telling you what you should do with your dog, but I can guide you to find the right way for doing it. Because the dog and you is relationship that is so unique that cannot be interpreted from the third party standpoint of view, but it can be guided to in a perfect world of pure love and harmony by integrating the real foundation of the canine needs that leads to a choices of the products, services that will actually enhance your relationship and open it for the happy, healthy life in time to come. So this was a little long answer to a very specific question of why pure love and harmony is so different than anything else on the market you can find today, because this continuum of finding the right ways and solutions for such a diverse market, for such a diverse, unique combination in the human-dog relationships, it's something that I think Pure Love and Harmony has an answer, and it's a simple formula to guide you to a wonderful and amazing relationship that you can discover works for you and your dogs. And in the time to come, all of that is built from the real hierarchy of need that can be just laid on the foundation of the one question answered properly: who is the dog? In the time to come, I'll open these lives with the things that I'll share with you, my knowledge and the scientific studies, that the scientific papers, some books, some very important and intriguing researching points that you can read on your own, and we can discuss it later on together in the groups that we can create and things like that. But the idea would be that all of us can develop in a way that through the dog, that because the dogs are very great catalysts, the dogs can be an amazing catalyst of human change, of person's change. Because as I said 10 times, you cannot, plenty of time, you cannot become a great pet parent and then still being a bad father or bad mother or bad colleague or things like that. So you cannot. The change is inevitable. And the personal growth that can start from learning who is the dog and how to approach the answer to that question can lead you to understand who is your child, who is your spouse, who is your boss, who is your friend. And that the same concept gonna lead to understand their needs and their uniqueness, and to build on that, the better community, a better world for the generations to come. Thank you so much for this wonderful time we spent together. I wish you an amazing week ahead. A lot of love and happiness in the families you live in, with the people surrounded you are with, and the dogs we all care so much about. Until next Thursday, 7 p.m. Eastern Time, in a new episode of the podcast, everything you wanted to know about dogs, but you just didn't have whom to ask.